终于了. 4 days ago, after nearly 40 days of radio silence, Kamalaharris finally sat down for her first interview. And this interview was on her home turf, state media, aka CNN, and it was designed with very easy questions and very little pushback, all to make her look good. However, the result of this interview turned into a complete disaster. Broken into 3 parts, it amounted to 35,000 dislikes, yo. That's more than 3 times the amount of likes it got.
I'm supposed to feel sorry for that bitch. I don't.
This might be the most 傻小问号 interview you have ever seen. And meanwhile, Trump is changing his tune, getting more and more serious lately. He actually did something that we suggested in our previous video that could actually turn things around and help him win that White House in the last 30 days of this election cycle. So get that popcorn ready as we watch the final showdown between the angry orange man and the joyful word salad warrior. So before we get into the absolute law sci-fest that is Kamala Harris's interview, let me give you a little bit of background. CNN is liberal, like very liberal, like left. And most people in the United States pretty much consider it state media, aka Kamala Harris's backyard. So needless to say, this should be a walk in the park. But for some reason, Kamala Harris did something that no other presidential candidate in history has done before. She brought along her vice presidential candidate to the interview.
What?
And my man sat right next to her and barely even said a word. What, the brat needs an emotional support human to come along just to answer a few simple questions in her own backyard? Now, originally this interview was supposed to be live, but for some reason, CNN decided to cut this interview down to 26 minutes. That's shorter than most of the videos on our channel, yo. And out of those 26 minutes, Kamala only spoke for 16. I mean, yo, homegirl's running for the highest office in the land, and having been radio silent for nearly 40 days, you'd think she'd have a lot to say to the American people that couldn't fit in 26 minutes.
No, you're right.
Now, obviously, these 3 clips that we did get were considered the best parts of the interview, but it all went to shit within the first question. Dana Bash started off with a question that is asked to every presidential candidate for the past 50 years. What will you do on your first day in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward. In a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism.
So right off the bat, it is not starting off too well. Strengthen and support the middle class? What bill are you gonna sign to usher in this new way forward? What's with all the word salad, yo?
I think sadly, in the last decade, we have had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation, and I think people are ready to turn the page on that.
And then she shifted the topic ever so slyly and indirectly to Trump. But there's one thing you must know. Over the past decade, that's 2014 to 2024, Biden has been in office for 3 years, Trump was in office for 4 years, and Obama was in office for 3 of those years. That's 6 years of the Democratic Party. Kamehameha, Also, the moment Trump announced his first presidential bid, the left-wing media went overtime, attacking him hardcore, slinging hatred left and right like their lives depended on it.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there is unrest in our lives.
And you push back on them, and you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
In high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
But I think you need to go back and punch him in the face. Feel like punching him.
They were dividing Americans from the get-go. And even now, their biggest strategy is beat Trump at all costs. Now, although Trump has flung his fair share of hate, when it comes to the Democratic Party, I think it's safe to say that their biggest issue is hypocrisy.
So what would you do day one?
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard. which include what we're going to do to bring down the cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest in families, for example, extending the child tax credit to $6,000 for families for the first year of their child's life to help them buy a car seat, to help them buy baby clothes, a crib. There's the work that we're going to do that is about investing in the American family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now. So there are a number of things on day one.
So clearly, Dana felt that Harris's answer was a little bit too vague and decided to give her another chance. But then Harris just talks about things that everybody wants, but doesn't go into detail about how to actually achieve them. I mean, at least Trump could go off the cuff and say stuff like he'd increase tariffs by 50% on Chinese goods, or increase tariffs by 200% on Chinese electric vehicles. Now, those claims are fucking ridiculous, but at least he gave the American people something to work with. But Kamala Harris says things like,
if you elect me, I'll give you more loans to buy affordable housing.
I mean, the one thing she did say clearly is that she was going to increase the child tax credit. That's cool, but bruh, America is at its lowest birth rate in over 40 years. What about all the single people or the childless families? Do they not matter?
Nope.
She's just saying what everyone wants to hear without offering any concrete methods of action. I mean, what is the opportunity economy plan? With 60 days left in this presidential election, homegirl still doesn't have any of her policies up on her website.
Just one other question about something that you said in 2019 when you first ran. There was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequences.
And this response is exactly why so many American voters do not trust Kamala Harris. She has, on multiple occasions, replaced the term illegal immigrants with the term undocumented workers, deliberately decriminalizing illegal immigration through language.
And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who traffic in guns, drugs, and human beings. I'm the only person in this race who actually served a border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward. I recognize the problem.
And when Dana Bash asked her if she still held the same values, Kamala decided not to answer the question directly, instead pivoting to transnational criminal organizations. Like, what the hell does a cartel have to do with this? This is because Kamala wants everyone to like her, and the issue of illegal immigration is on the forefront of every American's mind. But for the sake of votes, she answers in this very deceptive, hypocritical type way. She's like a goddamn chameleon. I mean, if she just says something like,
if I become president, my goal is to decriminalize illegal immigration and establish more lenient immigration policies because I have a plan to make illegal immigrants the driving force of the American economy.
If she says something like that, I could actually respect her a lot more. But if you take what she actually said and compare it with what Trump said about immigrants, where he claimed he would kick them all out and build a huge ass wall, although it's absolutely wild, his policy is very clear because he is not afraid of offending anybody.
I don't really care about offending people.
And this is Kamala Harris's biggest problem. She is too much of a goddamn hypocrite. Now, she is a great celebrity, a pretty decent dancer, and I bet she's even a really fun drunk. But she is not a leader. She is more suited for hosting dinners at the White House rather than living in the White House.
How should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Okay, so Dana Bash set her up real nice. She gave her the answer to the question. This is the advantage of having an interview on a network that fully supports you. A simple answer like,
oh, because I'm more inclusive and open to accepting different people with different values. And during my time as vice president, I learned more about different things in different fields. So I wouldn't call it a change, so to speak. I would say that I have evolved. I have unburdened myself from what has been. And after I become president, I hope to help America evolve too. USA 2.0.
In a response like that, and she will knock it out of the park. Come on, Command Man, you got this.
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed.
Fuck.
And it was at this moment when she said her values haven't changed that this interview was officially a disaster. Under the Biden-Harris administration, America suffered severe inflation and nearly 5 times the influx of illegal immigrants than under the Trump administration. And then to top it all off, they have various woke factions causing all sorts of conflicts. These are things that America wants to change the most, and she says that she don't want to change? So with that, I guess she's just gonna copy and paste Biden's policies. But this is nothing compared to this next part, which is absolutely dog shit.
Would you do anything differently? For example, would you withhold some U.S. weapons shipments to Israel? That's what a lot of people on the progressive left want you to do.
Let me be very clear. I'm unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself. And that's not going to change. But we have to get a deal done. This war must end. In the meantime, and we must get a deal that is about getting the hostages out. I've met with the families of the American hostages. Let's get the hostages out. Let's get the ceasefire done.
But no change in policy in terms of arms and so forth.
No, we have to get a deal done.
So the only time she mentions any sort of a policy is when it contradicts her supporters the most. She didn't offer anything about how to end the war, or how to reach a ceasefire agreement, or even that she's working on something that could reach a ceasefire agreement. Real talk, she sounds like a propagandist reading off of a script. I mean, look at her body language. Her eyes are looking at the table as if she's trying to recall every word from the script, and this just gives a complete lack of confidence. Now, initially, I thought it was just me and my own personal bias, and then I started going through the internet to see what everyone else is saying, and I realized it wasn't just me. And in the next chapter, you're gonna see how the internet reacted to Kamala Harris's interview. And let me tell you, it was brutal. So for some strange reason, CNN thought it'd be a good idea to cut up this interview into 3 separate parts. And bruh, the dislikes way exceed the likes by a lot. Do you want to know what's even more interesting than the interview itself? The comments. We are not smart enough for a full unedited live interview.
CNN is putting this interview into free DLC that should have been included at launch.
CNN to Kamala.
What's your favorite color?
CNN to Donald.
Why are you Hitler?
I'm starting to believe that the polls are actually rigged because the dislike ratio on all of her videos is absolutely insane. 18K likes to 41K dislikes is crazy.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and the hits just kept coming, yo. I'll put a link to the videos down in the description, and you can read that for your own entertainment purposes. But make no mistake, yo, it ain't just faceless people on the internet flinging shit. Even CNN got in on the action. You see, there was one point in that interview where Kamala was asked about her covering up Biden's sickness.
You were a very staunch defender of President Biden's capacity to serve another 4 years. Right after the debate, you insisted that President Biden is extraordinarily strong. Given where we are now, do you have any regrets about what you told the American people?
No, not at all. Not at all. He has the intelligence, the commitment, and the judgment and disposition that I think the American people rightly deserve in their president. By contrast, the former president has none of that.
She basically said that she had no regrets, and also Trump is terrible. And this is where CNN called her out bad.
I also thought it was interesting that she didn't take any responsibility at the end for telling the American people that Joe Biden was fine and he was strong. I mean, we all know that's not true. That's why he's out of the race, and she's still standing by the idea that he was fine and he's strong and that he's fine today. Nobody believes that, and I think most Americans know the truth, and when you're running to be president and you're willing to look them in the face and tell them something they know that you know is not true, it does speak a little bit to your character.
Scott.
I think it's incredibly weak sauce to show up with your running mate. The fact that they don't have enough confidence in her to let her sit herself, the actual top of the ticket, and do a single interview. In fact, I think the hand-wringing and the gyrations over this over the last month show a troubling lack of confidence in her political ability, which also makes you wonder as a voter, well, what kind of president would you be if this kind of a small-time decision, can we do an interview or not, what does that look like for your decision-making process?
Now, back in an earlier episode, we actually covered that event where Trump walked into a room full of black journalists and 3 of them dogpiled him on stage while he was alone.
So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network.
Fun fact, Trump is an asshole and a bully, but he's a tough ass and a bully. And when you're facing the leaders of countries such as Iran, Russia, China, and North Korea, a tough ass is exactly what you need. Not a joyful warrior giggling on the sidelines with her emotional support human.
I find a lot of her trajectory to not be my brand of woman leader. We've got 3 major international crises going on and someone applying to be commander-in-chief. As a woman, I want to see you do more than, appeal to giggling and having a girl moment on the stage.
Now, between state media stations like CNN and MSNBC, comments like this are far and few between.
And as a woman, there's a balance to be struck between being tough and being a bitch.
This is exactly what Homegirl was talking about. On stage, giggling and laughing like a schoolgirl. Now, if you ask me, give me the bitch over the giggler any day. Cause at least the bitch can get shit done. No disrespect intended. The giggler can go host parties and dinners for all I care, but if she's going face to face with Xi Jinping or Kim Jong-un or Vladimir Putin, bruh, that giggling is a serious liability. And that is not what I would want in a leader. So the whole purpose of the CNN interview was to make Kamala look more likable to the American people. But apparently it had the opposite effect. And when it came to the online betting markets, 代志大条. You remember that poll episode we did a while back where we suggested if Trump wants to win over women voters and eventually win the election, that he was gonna have to lean into abortion rights? Well, I believe someone might have given him our Hotita video because apparently now he is doing exactly just that.
In Florida, the state that you are a resident of, there's an abortion-related amendment on the ballot to overturn the 6-week ban in Florida. How are you going to vote on that?
Well, I think the 6-week is too short. It has to be more time, and so and I've told them that I want more weeks.
So you'll vote in favor of the amendment?
I am going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks.
And soon after that, JD Mascara Vance dropped this bomb.
Can you commit, Senator, sitting right here with me today, that if you and Donald Trump are elected, that you will not impose a federal ban on abortion?
I can absolutely commit that.
If such a piece of legislation landed on Donald Trump's desk, would he veto it?
Well, I think it'd be very clear he would not support it. I mean, he said that explicitly. Yeah, I mean, if you're not supporting it as the President of the United States, you fundamentally have to veto it.
So he would veto a federal abortion ban?
I think he would. He said that explicitly that he would.
Dude, it's like the Orange Man has been watching our channel. He's really starting to work on this abortion issue.
My administration will be great for women and their reproductive rights.
So from RFK and Tulsi Gabbard endorsing Trump to Mark Zuckerberg's whistleblowing, the online betting markets have put their odds on Trump, surpassing Kamala by 3 points. And in the polls before the CNN interview, Kamala was beating Trump by 1.8 points. And at this exact same period back in 2020, Biden was beating Trump by 7.2 points. But in the end, he only won by 4.5. And back in 2016, all of the polls underestimated Trump by 2.1%. So I think we can say that on average, they underestimate Trump by 2.4 points.
You better be careful!
And with Kamala only leading by 1.8, I'd say Trump has a much higher shot at taking the White House than he did before. But a lot can happen in 60 days. From next week's debate between Trump and Kamala, if they both show up, to even Trump's court case verdict due at the end of the month. There are still a few crucial moments that will decide who will be the next leader of the free world. 到底谁会赢？这么精彩，让我们继续看下去。But before you 看下去, let me know what you think. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and keep it civil down there, yo. And I will see you on the flip side. Peace!